Well, hello, and thank you for joining Clients First for another session of Dynamics NAV training. Today, we're going to be demonstrating NAV 2018 and showing you some of the differences between the web client versus the Windows client. Topics that we're going to cover include overall functionality, searching within the system, looking at data on lists, personalizations, reporting, and other limitations. So when we talk about the overall functionality, it's really quite amazing that you can literally do just about everything from the web client than using the Windows client. There are a couple of exceptions we're going to talk about, but from a perspective of usability, user friendliness, limitations on what you would need to install on a computer. I mean, all you need is a browser to access the web client. So there's just a few little things that you can't do. And theoretically, performance on the web client should be faster for the end user. This is because there are limitations on the data that's actually queried or requested from the server. Traditionally, website access using a portal view to look at a list of customers, items, orders, it took a tremendous amount of time to be able to publish information to the user's screen. With Dynamics NAV and the web client capabilities, Microsoft has engineered the system from a data polling perspective to only grab as much data as can be displayed, rather than grabbing, 10,000 item records or something like that. If there's only 30 that can be displayed, it reads 30 from the table and displays those to make it much more responsive. The security within the system is applied, and user logins and Windows authentication are applied in an identical manner. There is a little bit of a difference in the way you can access companies and the way you can see what company you're working in. Both clients offer multilingual support if your interface is going to be in, a foreign language, user by user. And of course, modifications or personalizations done are available. So let's just take a look. So if we go into the main Dynamics NAV 2018 environment, this is the role center of the Windows client. And certain type of information is available directly on the ribbon. One significant difference is the department menu. Now, many of you may not be using it, but many times when I'll do an overview presentation, I'll try to illustrate the department menus that exist to really illustrate to someone the depth and breadth. This actually may be confusing to some users when all they're interested in is their limited and perhaps personalized role center, like the sales order processor. You can see that this department menu is available in the Windows client, but if I go to my browser and I go to my tab where I've opened Dynamics NAV by just accessing my locally hosted NAV 2018, my sales order processor role is invoked. So I don't have access to a department menu per se. One thing that is rather attractive on the web client is the ability to see the company that you're working in. It's bold, it's directly right here on the top of your role center. If we flip back, in contrast to the web or Windows-based client, you'll see my company's down here on the status bar. So it's still available. I can still go ahead and choose to work in other companies and so forth, but it's really front and center on the web client. But both clients present this information very clearly. The information that is available on the web-based client, we have our chart parts, we have our tiles or our activity panes that are available, and my items and self-service or any of the functionality that's been allowed or authorized for your user is available on the Role Center pane. We can go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and sign out, or I want to look at my settings where I'll choose what's the Role Center I'm working with, what's my default company, what's my work date, my region, my language, my time zone. So all that's available from the web. And we have the ability to search. And searching, you'll notice here it says search for a page or a report. So if I was to click on that and say search and I wanted to find, I'll just start typing, and you'll see it brings up the list of all of those functional pages or reports that I might want to access. And then if I just click on one of those, it's going to bring me into the relevant functional area. In this case, the customer list page. If I go back to the Windows client, I have a similar function, the search box up here. And if I was to go ahead and type CUST, it's going to bring up the same list of pages and reports. And if I click, let's bring up my customer list, it is my customer list. It's the same type of information that's available. From a security perspective, the same things apply in terms of your permissions and your access capability. Let's go back to the Role Center and personalize something. So perhaps if I go through and I tell it that we want to customize, and maybe I want to customize the page, or let's customize the ribbon. And on the ribbon across the top of the screen up here, where I have actions, new document. So here's the actions, new document pane. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to expand that new document pane, and I'm going to remove. So we're going to look at what's here, new document, sales quote. Let's remove that. Let's remove sales invoice because we only create sales orders. And let's remove credit memos because we do real sales orders and real return orders. And I'll push OK. And you'll see how I've modified the ribbon. We could go ahead and select a different chart part perhaps, or make various revisions. But let's flip into the web client and go back to my browser and go back to my home page, which I can just go ahead and go back through my browser button. And I'm going to refresh. And when I refresh, it's going to bring up this information. And it's still showing all of these functions. So it's possible I need to restart the service, but these changes will be saved and will be preserved. Yeah, I probably have to restart the service client in order for that change to occur and be updated, or perhaps just choose the Role Center and then choose the Role Center again. Let me give that a shot. So I'm going to go back to my home page, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to change via my settings, my default Role Center. I'm going to say that I'm an accountant and push OK. And it's going to reload the accounting Role Center. So all of my components of my Role Center have been changed. And now let's flip it back to the sales order processor and choose OK. And now it has updated. My new document is only the sales order and the sales return order. The other new documents that I had personalized away from the Role Center have changed. So sometimes there's a refresh that you have to go through, but so there's no department menus, there's faster access, the company access display, the multilingual support, and page mods are available. We talked about searching. Searching includes a full text search. Not only is the search that I demonstrated from the main Role Center available, where it's page and report search, But let's look at searching on a list. So let's go back into, we'll start on the web client, and let's go to my customers. And on my customer list, if I want to do a search, and I'm just going to type in CAN as I start typing, and you'll see I didn't need to put a wildcard mask or a question mark or ampersand for some of you that may have used, you worried about the ignoring case sensitivity or an @ symbol, and just typed in lowercase CAN and it finds Candoxy Canada, the Canon Group, Candoxy Contour. So each of these are available, and I can click and bring up that customer record. This is within our web client. Let's do the same search in the Windows client. So we'll bring up my customer list, and now I'll go ahead and I'm going to filter, and I want to look or search by name. And now I'll type in CAN, and I hit enter, and the system brings up that same list, the same results that I had before. And there's my Canon Group, and I'll double click on that and bring up the record for the Canon Group in the Windows client. Same information, but the look and feel is quite different. There are still graphical support, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But searching capability is well supported in both environments. When we take a look at those lists, there's one of the differences is the graphical capabilities. And when we look at the Windows client, lists can be shown as a chart or as a list. On the web client, however, it's a little different. They're tile-based lists, designed more for touchscreen type of interface, web-based interfaces, much more graphical, and the data load for performance still supports that drag bar on the right-hand side of the screen. So let's go into the Windows client, and back on this customer list, I'm going to clear my filter. So I'm looking at a list of all customers, and we can go ahead and sort by any of the columns that I want, which I guess you would expect. But I'm looking at this list, and I can see the columns of information and the flow fields that are included. And as I scroll down, you'll see fact boxes are updated, so I can see information on the customer, their sales history, their sales statistics. I don't have to hit F9 to go into their statistics. And as I go through a customer, that information is updating, reducing the number of clicks and the type of data I might want to see right on the list. However, what if I wanted to see more information about these customers without spitting out a report? And I can do that in the web client, the Windows client, by saying show as a chart. And when we show things as a chart, we select the measures that we want, and the system will go through, and based on that selection, whether it's salesperson, state, profitability, balance due by salesperson, whatever information I choose in these various measures that are available in the system will go through. And so if I said here, show me by sales, balance, by salesperson, by city, to be able to grab that information visually when you're calling up the list, rather than having to run reports, quite powerful. So this is the Windows client. Now let's flip into the web client. And in our browser, if I just go back, and I'm looking at a list, let's get rid of the filter. And what I see here is a list. Now, if I just say just a regular list, and I can hover, show as a list, here's a list that's similar to the list that was available in the Windows client. And I have a scroll bar on the side. And if I want to update the fact boxes are still here and preserved. So the Canon Group, here's their fact box. I can drill down into balances, very user-friendly. And there isn't a view as a chart like there is where I viewed the list as a chart. but I can view it as tiles. And I can view tall tiles, or I can view these smaller tiles, which are ways that the wide tiles can be displayed based on the format of your screen and the information that you have. You can be able to make it very useful to access this type of data. Let's just flip into the items and just show you where that could also come in handy. If you think about looking at a list of items, records in a system, if I searched and I said, find me chairs. So here's all our items that are chairs, and now I have a visual representation of those based on having the pictures available directly on the list. Pretty neat. Obviously, you need to put the pictures in. Okay. So customizations and personalizations can be done in the Windows client. If you add a field, if you add, whether it's a modification that's done to a page or personalizations, they will be preserved and inherited in that web client. Reporting. Reporting can be a little bit tricky, and I would say we encountered some pain with our early deployments, because when we print a report, a native report, printer drivers are only available in our Windows client. They're not available for native reports on the web client. So if you want to print your aging, for example. But if you're printing documents like Word documents, you can print those. You can't just select a printer directly through the web client. You have to print to a PDF or print to Word, and then you can select a printer via their tools, but you can't directly access a printer from the browser. And that's currently. What's around the corner, we'll find out. But where that really leads to a limitation is there are some reports, like the check, that you can't print a preview of it and then print it on paper, because there could be inherent risks of duplicating it or something. So from a security perspective, certain reports can't be generated through the web client. You'd need to run a Windows client. So if we go ahead and we just take a look at printing, let's just bring up, for example, the aged accounts receivable report. I'm in the Windows client. We'll bring up that report, and we'll go ahead and age it as of today by the transaction, which is the posting date, with 30-day buckets. And I'm going to say I want to print detail on this report. And when I'm generating that report, I then have the ability to go through and print. And when I click print, I can choose my printer driver. So instead of printing, let's just go ahead and preview. We'll run that report again, aged AR, with my filters, and preview. And when we preview a report, it's going to churn through and generate our report. And that's the classic looking aged accounts receivable. From this screen in the Windows client, we can go ahead and choose print and print to whatever printer we have available. If I go ahead and I go into our browser-based client and I tell it search for reports, aged accounts receivable, it's the same functionality, and it's got the same filter settings that I just chose from the Windows client. When I choose here to print, my options are, it's not going to pop open a window for me to choose which printer do I want to direct my output to. It's going to generate a PDF. And from here, I can now choose, what do I want to do, and do I want to access a printer? So strong functionality, just a little bit different. And we'll go ahead and we'll go back, and we'll close this window. From a document printing perspective, if I was to print an order confirmation, so let's go to the sales order list and print a confirmation of a sales order. When I go ahead and print or preview, let's preview this, you'll notice it's going to feed that to Word. And it's going to open up a Word document using Microsoft Office or Office 365 and bring up that record. And from Word, now I can use the Word tools to go ahead and print, just like any Word document that I was printing. If we go to our browser, so I'm using Google Chrome as my browser, and I bring up my order processor role center, and we bring up a list of sales orders, and I bring up this order, or I can just go ahead and print the confirmation. The same functions are available directly on the ribbon, and it's going to go ahead and when I choose print, it's going to process the same functionality where it's taking that Word document and it's creating a PDF from it. Similarly, I can choose to generate that report if I go ahead and choose sales orders and bring up this order and say print the confirmation. I can go ahead and say send to, instead of a PDF, generate the Word document. And when I generate the Word doc, it's going to go ahead and function in the same manner where it's going to pop open Word. And publish that information in the same manner. And once again, as I had mentioned, check printing, it's not a native available format. It's an inherent security issue, and therefore it's going to be recommended that you utilize the Windows client for anyone that's actually printing checks. Other limitations. We have discovered some limitations with all of the upgrade projects that we've executed that clients had large databases. I want to say, 750 meg, a terabyte, lots and lots of data, and they're keeping everything. The system has calculations that work from the beginning of time. Like on the list, it's calculating on the vendor list average days to pay for every single transaction from the beginning of time, for every single record that ever existed. We have seen that where you could click on the list and it could take a few minutes to actually respond. And for many projects, we've made new versions of those pages and removed those fields. And then the system performs very well. But Microsoft has recognized that these are issues, and they have been improving with builds. So as new builds come out, they will re-architect the way data is queried or stored, and we have seen significant improvements. Limiting the calculations on the pages can definitely improve. So everyone, when they install the new environment, it's going to be really, really fast. But based on the number of calculated fields that are projected, we have discovered some performance issues. It's usable, but we want everything to be faster. We want information really quickly, so we don't want to have to sit around and wait while things are processed. So other than that, I found that people working with the web client are finding it very user-friendly. So if you've never used NAV, I think you're going to be really comfortable in the web client. If you've used NAV and you're used to more of the tools that were available to you in the classic versions of the client, you might lean towards using the Windows client. Either way, we're here to support you, and Microsoft has done a great job in bringing this project up and making available multiple versions of the clients. So with that, I want to thank you so much, and hopefully this was informative and useful. And we'll now open up if anyone has any questions.